Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, we are on part 3 of our delve into the Legend of Zelda series. Mike, what are we covering today?
Oh, man, we got so much fun stuff to talk about, because guess what? We finally did it. We hit probably the most quintessential Zelda game of all time. I said it. Not so hot take.
Wow.
Ocarina of Time.
Wow, yeah. The real unpopular opinion there, Mike.
I know, right? Really, wow. I'm really doing some real work over here as far as making people get mad at me. That's for sure. Guys, I think Mario's a good game, too.
Whoa. You gotta stop it with these hot takes.
I know, right? I'm unstoppable. Someone call the burn unit. Okay, so we're going to talk about Ocarina of Time today, and we're also going to talk about Majora's Mask. But first, Ocarina of Time. Is it Ocarina or Ocarina? I've always called it Ocarina.
I think you can say it either way because nobody speaks in that game, so you don't know how they pronounce it. I think it's one of those things that's like you can say it either way. Tomato, tomato, you know?
Potato, potato. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. What if I just changed it every time? In Ocarina of Time. No,
You can't say that.
So that's, yeah, you can't say that at all. So there are actually 4 big things I've pulled that are different that make Ocarina of Time stand apart from previous Zelda games. First, 3D third-person view. What up?
Yeah, that's the most obvious, immediate change from the other Zelda games.
Yeah, this is the Zelda that we all know and love now, that we all take for granted. It started here. Z-targeting. Oh, how I love you, Z-targeting.
Z-targeting is a revolution in video game technology. I'm going to say it right now.
That's a lukewarm take, as in everyone knows it, and if you disagree, then it's a hot take. And we drop kick you. That's what that's what it is to that. Okay. There's an ocarina you can play in Ocarina of Time. Who knew? Which
is so fun because you press the buttons and you play whatever you want. There's like all kinds of things. I remember on the internet, the early internet, they're like telling you how to play like the Simpsons theme song and stuff.
Oh yeah, they had the Zelda. Well, not Zelda. It is Zelda. You could use the C buttons, the yellow up and down and right and left arrows. Right, That's what you would play with.
Yeah, and if you held the R button down, I think that would like make the notes flat or sharp, and then the Z button did the opposite of that. And then you could also bend your notes with the joystick. So there's like a lot of room to work with here.
You could record some real bops.
Yeah, you could really put out some bangers.
Total bangers. The last thing that I think really made Zelda like stand out from the previous games, you can ride a horse.
It's so cool.
Its name is Epona. Oh, I love her. I love it so much. Such a good game. So on our very confusing Legend of Zelda timeline, I almost said Lord of the Zings because I put it as LOZ. Legend of Zelda timeline. Ocarina of Time takes place before all of the other games up to this point. There are some other games that came out, like Skyward Sword, for example, that take place before Ocarina of Time. But for this history, as in before all the games before this were after Ocarina of Time. So you know that's true because when you start playing the game, your enemy is Ganondorf, not Ganon. So that tells you this happened before the imprisoning war.
Yeah.
In fact,
we've never seen Ganondorf before.
You never have, unless you played Super Smash Brothers. Ganondorf. That was my favorite when people would cheer his name.
Yeah. Well, except Ganondorf was he was only added in Melee, so this was even predating.
Oh, that's
Smash
right.
Because he wasn't in Smash Bros. 64.
Gosh, I loved him in Melee though. It was so fun to play as him.
He was just a mirror of Captain Falcon.
Yeah, he was. His move wise, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the story involves Link attempting to stop Ganondorf from acquiring the Triforce. If you're not aware, if you remember back to our previous history on Legend of Zelda, Ganondorf getting the Triforce is what turns him into Ganon, Calamity Ganon, whatever you want to call it, Man of Many Names, or Demon King of Many Names, I guess. So this is kind of telling you that story. Spoilers. You're supposed to say the spoilers before you say it, but I don't do it that way. I'm crazy. Okay.
Spoilers. Game's 20 years old.
That's right. So the first time the world knew of Ocarina of Time was actually at Nintendo's own Shoshinkai trade show in December of 1995. Ocarina of Time was developed with Super Mario 64 concurrently, as in at the same time, by Nintendo's Entertainment Analysis and Development Division, the EAD. We all love the EAD. They make great games. Everyone should love the EAD. Okay. So, Nintendo planned to release Super Mario 64 as a launch game for the N64, but then they're like, you know what? Ocarina of Time, that belongs on the 64 DD. What's that?
Oh, man.
Why? It's the disk drive peripheral for the system, for the
It
Nintendo
wouldn't be
64.
a Nintendo system without a non-existent disk drive.
Right? What is it with Nintendo and disk drives? They were really trying to push that.
And
for
never
so
putting
long.
those disk drives out anywhere outside of Japan.
Yeah, because spoilers, it failed miserably in Japan, if you didn't know. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But so Nintendo eventually decided, you know what, we're going to put Ocarina of Time on a cartridge because at the time there was a big, big tech problem, which I will now explain from Wikipedia because I don't entirely understand it, but I think I kind of do. So the high data performance requirements imposed by continuously reading 500 motion captured character animations, that's right, because they used mocap for Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Ooh, so ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they used mocap. Those could not be handled by the discs at the time and the discs readers at the time. So what they had to do was they were like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put out an Ocarina of Time on a 64 cartridge, and then we're going to do an expansion disc later down the road when we figure out that problem. Spoilers, the expansion disc never really happened.
They never figured out the problem.
Actually, the disk drive just wasn't very successful at all, so they just scrapped it. Ocarina of Time is a 32 megabyte game, so it's huge. Just kidding. At that time, though, it was the largest game Nintendo had ever created. 32 megabytes. Think about it, Tyler.
Wow,
We buy
that's
flash
huge.
drives twice those sizes for like $20.
You buy flash drives literally thousands of times that size for like $20.
Oh, that's true. I don't know how to do math. I just confused a megabyte with a gigabyte. That's what I did. Completely.
It's 3 orders of magnitude difference. It's huge. They're flash drives are huge. Nintendo
One thing we
64
learned-
games, not huge.
Not huge. One thing we just learned is I cannot do math. Okay.
It's okay.
Early in development, the team had concerns about data storage restraints on the N64 cartridge, so that's why they put it there. But initially, they were so scared that this was happening, that they were so scared about the fact that they couldn't put all of the game on the N64 cartridge. They had a contingency plan.
Good. Should always have a contingency plan.
Ocarina of Time almost had an exact same structure as Super Mario 64, as in you were Link, you were in Ganondorf's castle, and you would jump into portals or paintings, just like
Whoa.
Mario. That was almost Ocarina of Time. Thankfully, they didn't have to do that, but they did pull one thing from that. You in the Forest Temple, you fight a doppelganger of Ganondorf. That comes from that version of the game. There was going to be
Oh.
a painting with that. Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
That's neat.
So think about that.
Didn't know
Next time
that.
you're in the Forest Temple, just think about that. Think
Yeah.
about the facts I tell you. Okay, on the topic of dungeon fights, Tyler, what's your favorite dungeon? in
Favorite
Ocarina of
dungeon,
Time?
Ocarina of Time, Spirit Temple. It's the last dungeon,
Nice.
by far the best. Has the coolest boss fight where you use the mirror shield to store up attacks on Twin Rova. It's great. It's the best, and don't at me. Also, it's one of the only, I think it's the only dungeon you do as both Child Link and Adult Link. Like you do part of it as Child Link, and then you do the other part as Adult Link. So, yeah, it's the best one.
Nice, dude. I like that. Also, I don't really have a favorite dungeon because I've never beaten this game. I'm sorry. I've played the Deku Tree dungeon probably 8 times. I had like a problem, which is I never owned this game. I would always borrow it from people, and that really does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, don't apologize, Mike, because you can play it still, and you can play it for the first time. You get to be one of today's lucky 10,000 that plays the game for the first time, and you can borrow my copy of the Nintendo Player's Guide, which is the best guide for that game. And I want to tell you why.
Tell me why.
The Nintendo Player's Guide tells it tells you how to do all the dungeons and all the things, gives you all the secrets, whatever, like a normal player's guide, except the whole thing is written in the past tense, so it sounds like Nintendo is telling you a story.
What?
So you go into a dungeon, and the thing would say, and then Link went into the room and pushed the block over to this switch, and it's like really cool. It makes you feel like you're reliving the story as the story is being told to you. The only problem with it is when you get to the end, I think it's after you beat the first form of Ganondorf, and then you have to run down from the castle. I think it gets you to the bottom of the castle. Maybe it doesn't even tell you how to beat Ganondorf, but there's a point where it just says, oh, we don't know how Link defeated Ganon. We'll never know, but he did, or something. Anyway, they don't tell you how to beat the last boss. And as a kid, I was really upset at that because I had paid for this strategy guide that didn't tell me how to beat the whole game. But as an adult, I really appreciate it because it made me figure it out on my own.
Did you figure it out on your own?
You bet I did. It wasn't that hard.
I know you did. You're such a good adventurer.
Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, you can borrow my copy of that when you play the game, and you're going to have a blast.
Wait,
you have a 2DS. You should play the 2DS remake.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that later because I'm definitely thinking about getting it. Because, it's in my remake section. Okay, so let's get to development first, though. We go with development?
Yes, let's do that.
If you're wondering, hey, what's going on with our hero, Shigeru Miyamoto? He is now a supervisor on Ocarina of Time. He was the principal director of Super Mario 64, if you recall, but now he is a producer and supervisor on Ocarina of Time. He's managing multiple teams, kind of. Each team has their own director. So this is kind of a new strategy for the Nintendo EAD. This was revolutionary at the time of this game. There were actually like 4 or 5 initial teams, and it kind of grew from there. And teams were based on certain things like scenarios and planning, like that's like game design. Link's actions is just a whole team. Transforming 2D items into 3D form, like how do you make the hook shot look 3D? That's a team. Camera stuff, that's a team. Mocap's a team. Sound, special effects. Even the flow of time and how the time system in the game works was a whole separate team. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, because the developer team, honestly, they were new to 3D games.
I mean, everybody was new to 3D games in 1996, 1997 when they were making this thing, right?
Yeah, and Miyamoto wanted this game to feel like a medieval tale of sword and sorcery. That's a direct quote from him. And he actually wanted it to be in the Chanbara genre of Japanese sword fighting, and that actually comes from the movies. I didn't know this. This is like a movie genre in Japan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm hoping Matt can fill us in more on this. He probably knows. This is all for you, Matt. Please, I'm just leading you into this. So what they actually did to get this sword fighting style down is they had 120 stunt performers doing mocap for this game.
Holy moly, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's where the 500 mocap scenes come from. So, because Miyamoto initially intended Ocarina of Time to be played from a first-person perspective. Isn't that crazy?
Whoa.
Think about a first-person Zelda game, like Zelda Skyrim. But he wanted it that way because he wanted to be able to like have players see the environment better, like all of Hyrule Field better. Because the one thing that I want people to take away from the Ocarina of Time development, they were super into the idea, now that they do 3D, of building this world. Like the world in itself is a character, and we'll get back to that more later on. But what ended up happening is they didn't want it to be, they switched back to third person because they wanted to show you child Link and adult Link as separate people. So if they'd have done the first person view, you would have seen all the world, but you wouldn't have known you aged at those moments.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Miyamoto felt it necessary for them to be visible on screen as a child and adult. So Tyler, now are you ready for possibly the fact of the episode, or just the Ocarina of Time fact of the episode?
I'm ready for it.
So originally, Z-targeting, what we all know and love, okay, was just a generic marker. However, Koizumi decided to change the design to a fairy, because that's like a theme of the game, and they were fairies. The fairy gained the name by the development team of Fairy Navigation System. That's what the staff called it. Ultimately, they shortened that nickname down to Navi.
Oh, the name of the fairy. And this is
where Navi came from. Yeah, it was the Z-targeting term, and that's what they just made the character's name, was Navi.
Oh, I have a question for you. So what is Z-targeting?
Oh, good point. So say, Tyler, you and I are sword fighting, all right? And you got a master sword and I got a master sword because it's only fair, and we'll both fight over it.
Yep.
I'm looking at you, but then I turn right on my joystick, and now I'm facing away from you, and I want to zip back to focusing on you the whole time when we're walking in circles to each other. If I hold the Z button on the Nintendo 64 controller, which is in the middle, it's a trigger button, then my viewpoint automatically locks onto you. And that is Z-targeting. And we can go pace around each other.
So you can move around while still keeping your focus on the enemy.
Exactly.
Which is very important in like a 3D combat environment, because 3D was new for players at the time too, and anything that Nintendo could do to like help people navigate in 3D space was very helpful. So Z-targeting was awesome.
And Z-targeting completely was like Nintendo's thing. Like they were the first ones to really get it right. A lot of games influenced by this Z-targeting. So just throwing that out there for everyone to know. So some of Miyamoto's ideas were used in Super Mario 64. Like the ones that were meant for Zelda, he ended up just putting in Super Mario 64 because that came out first. Makes sense. But other ideas couldn't be in there due to time constraints, which is where Ocarina of Time, Ocarina of Time actually ran on the same engine as Super Mario 64, but by the end of it, it was so heavily modified by all these changes that Miyamoto pretty much considered them like two completely different engines.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So one major difference between the two of them is camera control. For example, in Super Mario 64, you have a lot of control of the camera. You can move it around, and you need that camera control because you're platforming, and you need to see where you're jumping. Ocarina of Time, not so much. It's always behind you, and it was supposed to, once again, reflect the focus on the game world around you. You're always looking from Link's perspective, what the world looks like. It's all around there. Meanwhile, Super Mario 64, you got to be centered on Mario.
Yep. And the rudimentary, I shouldn't say rudimentary, but like the limited amount of camera control that you get is done with the Z targeting button. So if there's nothing around for you to lock onto, then it just moves the camera directly behind Link, so you can kind of reposition the camera that way.
Yeah, so it's pretty revolutionary,
Yeah.
And so in this way too, with the camera being like fixed behind you, they wanted to make it way more cinematic, but they wanted it to still be a video game. It's movie-like, but still has the feeling of a film, like that epic feeling of like a medieval fantasy film. Okay, and Takumi Kawago creates cutscenes for Nintendo. He still does it, as far as I know. And that he said his priority was to make the player feel like they were in control of the action, but to promote this like instantaneous continuity of cinematic gameplay, melding movies and games into one.
Wow.
So the cutscenes in Ocarina of Time are completely generated with real-time computing on the Nintendo 64, and they do not use any pre-rendered full-motion video.
No, they don't. No space for it.
Yeah, which is why. But that makes it like, to me, I'm like, that's so crazy they fit all this into 32 megabytes just because the game's huge. There's so much to do in that game.
That's the only way to do it too. Like if they had pre-rendered cutscenes for everything, they'd be way bigger than 32 megs. I remember
it would have been like switching out cartridges.
Yeah, exactly. There was a question in an old issue of Nintendo Power. Somebody was like, hey, basically they were saying like, hey, the PlayStation has these things called full motion videos. Why doesn't the N64 have that? And Nintendo was basically like, we do have that. Ever played a game called Zelda Ocarina of Time? There's tons of cutscenes in that game. And I was like, that's not really the same thing, but okay. I guess
I see what you're saying, but it's not exactly the
not
same.
the same thing, but it's very impressive because all of those things are rendered in real time, which is cool.
So Miyamoto's vision required that this real-time architecture for the total of more than 90 minutes of cutscenes.
Whoo, man, it's a movie of just cutscenes.
Yeah, that's why they didn't go with pre-rendered cutscenes. So Toru Osawa created the scenario for the game based on a story idea by Miyamoto and Yoshiaki Koizumi. He was supported by A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening strip Kensuke Tanabe, who we've talked to about before on the previous episode because he did Link's Awakening. Miyamoto said the real-time rendering engine allowed his small team of 3 to 7 cinematic developers to rapidly adjust the storyline and to focus on developing additional gameplay elements, even up to the final few months of development. They were just constantly changing and moving things around.
That's awesome.
Which is cool because otherwise, like if they did those pre-rendered cutscenes, you're locked in. Like that's so much like work that goes into those cutscenes, like the Final Fantasy style cutscene. Ugh, so pretty to look at, but so much work. The dungeons were designed by E.G. Aonum. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I hope I am. It's A.G. Aonum. I don't know how to say it.
There should be an A on the end there.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Aonuma. Yeah, he ends up being the director for later games, I think.
Well, I messed up his name. Can you fix it for me, Tyler? Put his name in our Google Doc script that I wrote. Yes, it's there. Everyone knows we use Google Docs, but we are not sponsored. Although in the Super Bowl, they'll make you cry. All right. So, did you see that commercial tonight?
No, I missed that one.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even watch it. They're like, it's going to make you cry. I'm like, nope, I'm going to walk away. Throughout the late 1990s, the Nintendo 64 was said to lack a hit first-party game. All right. Next Generation, a sweet magazine called Next Generation, wrote that Nintendo absolutely can't afford another holiday season without a real marquee title. And boy, oh boy, was Ocarina of Time that marquee title. In March 1998, Ocarina of Time was the most anticipated Nintendo 64 game in Japan. Howard Lincoln, another hero of Nintendo, insisted at E3 1998 that Zelda ship on time and become Nintendo's reinvigorating blockbuster, akin to a Hollywood movie. And boy, oh boy, did he get that right. It totally was a blockbuster.
Yeah.
So Customers in North America who pre-ordered the Ocarina of Time received a limited edition box with a golden plastic card reading Collector's Edition. Ooh. This edition contained a gold-colored cartridge.
I wanted that so bad.
Oh, I know. A tradition that began with the original Legend of Zelda in 1986 for NES, which you've talked about. Demand was so great for this that Electronics Boutique, RIP, sponsored pre-selling the game on November 3rd, 1998. There were several versions of Ocarina of Time, just so you guys know, but I will tell you right now, a lot of them were not released, but we've learned about them over time. So the later versions mostly just fixed minor glitches, but there were some big things that they changed. The Ganondorf's blood was crimson. They changed it to green.
Mm-hmm. I have the old. I think I have the first cartridge they made after the gold cartridge, and it definitely still has red Ganon blood.
Yeah, so that was one that like definitely was on the one of the cartridges because they said not all of these were changed. Like a lot of them were changed pre-release. So there was music in the Fire Temple dungeon that used an Islamic prayer chant, and they removed it out of there.
Yeah, that's definitely in that cartridge that I have also.
Oh yeah, and that was because the classic. We've talked about this before, but Nintendo very much has like a avoiding religious material policy in all of their games. So if you buy like the remakes of the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you're not going to see red Ganon blood, and you're not going to listen for that Islamic chant in the Fire Temple. That's just not going to happen.
They also changed the crescent and star logo that's on all the N64 things. There's a few things like in the Spirit Temple that have this like crescent and star, which I believe is also an Islamic symbol.
Yeah.
They changed it in later versions, even like the virtual console versions on the Wii and on the re-releases that were on the GameCube. They changed that symbol to something more neutral.
Interesting. We've heard about this so much with Nintendo. They're always changing stuff around to avoid their very strict policies on religion and violence and swearing and anything bad.
And red blood.
Red blood's bad.
Green blood? Okay.
Totally fine. It's like, is a game mature? Make them kill aliens. Replace those people with aliens. It's teen now. All right. Ocarina of Time's music was written by our best friend, Koji Kondo.
Oh, man. What a man.
What a man. What a legend. The composer in charge of music for most of the games in Legend of Zelda series. He did so much before, too. We talked about it before. But in addition to characters having musical themes, like the old games, areas of Hyrule actually had their own pieces of music once again, going back to making the world feel alive. It's like a character. So actually, a lot of these worlds, like the location was actually variations of the Ocarina tune, which was pretty interesting. So like you'd like listen to the music in the background, and that would kind of give you a clue of what the Ocarina music's going to be like when you get to that area. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time was released in Japan on November 21st, 1998, and then in North America on the 23rd, only 2 days later.
Wow, we're getting closer together on the releases. That seems like a game that would have been out in Japan for like 2 years before it came out in the US, and everybody here would be like, when's it coming out here?
Yeah, like, we need it now. What is happening?
But I guess they didn't do that. That's awesome.
That was Ray Romano talking about it if no one knew what I was doing just now.
Zelda. Deborah, we need more Zelda.
Okay, Ocarina of Time was released to universal acclaim in the United States, and it sold it had over 500,000 pre-orders before
Holy
launch.
moly.
Which is more than any previous video game.
That's
ever.
enough to qualify as hotcakes and gangbusters.
Totally. It had more than 1 million copies sold in less than a week.
That's incredible.
In 1998, 2.5 million copies were sold. Even though it was released only 39 days before the end of the year, it earned $150 million in U.S. revenues, higher than any Hollywood film in the last 6 weeks of 1998.
Whoa.
Who says video games aren't big business? Those people are wrong.
I don't think anybody says that anymore.
Yeah, they used to, though. And I still
That's true, they did.
Mock them. All right, now we're going to talk about something cool. Not like the whole thing wasn't cool, but we're going to talk about Master Quest.
Oh, boy. Tell me about Master Quest.
So after you complete Ocarina of Time, Nintendo was like, you know what? We got to do something cool with Ocarina of Time. We got to use that 64DD peripheral we were talking so much about. So they actually made something called Yura Zelda, which translates to Another Zelda. And it was going to be like a second version of Ocarina of Time with rearranged dungeons. Okay. And then, as I talked about before, it never came out. It was delayed indefinitely because of the 64DD being a commercial failure.
Hot pile of garbage.
Yeah, a hot, steaming pile of garbage. But in August 2000, Miyamoto was like, you know what? Your Zelda's finished. We should put something out, you know? And so what happened was it was ported to the GameCube in 2002 in Japan, but then it came out in North America and Europe in 2003 as The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest. And it had those rearranged dungeons and some new, more difficult puzzles.
Yeah. Ooh. It was a pre-order bonus for folks who pre-ordered Wind Waker. They would get this Zelda, who played the original Zelda and Master Quest. My buddy had that, and we never finished Master Quest, but it was really hard.
Yeah, I really want to try this out once I beat the original, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows when that's going to be. Hopefully it comes out on Switch someday. That'll be cool. Or I should just get it on 2DS. We'll talk about this later. Okay, so there's actually, I'm going to do it right now. Never mind. 2011, in June, 3DS, Ocarina of Time 3D came out. And it was actually developed by the EA division again with the help of Grezzo, which was an independent Japanese studio headed by Koichi Ishii. The game includes Master Quest and adds features like touchscreen and gyroscope controls and a, quote, boss challenge mode. It also had instructional video guides for players that got stuck because, I mean, it didn't have
Game's hard.
a sweet strategy guide that told you a story. And they also have a less difficult version of the Water Temple.
These whippersnappers these days.
Yeah, I've never played the Water Temple. What's the deal? Why is everyone so upset about the Water Temple?
So the problem with the Water Temple, the biggest issue, to sum it up, there's like 3 different levels to the Water Temple, and you get to each level by raising and lowering the water in certain places. So like you have to go to a place
Sounds
to be able
cool.
to raise the water. It's very cool. The problem is you can very quickly lose your place where you are, especially if you leave the dungeon and come back. I'm not sure I think the water level resets when you come back. So if the part of the dungeon you were in is like on a higher or lower level than where it is when it resets, you would have to like remember that you needed to set the water level higher. So if you came back after a couple hours or days or weeks of not playing it, you would totally forget where you were and you would just be lost forever in the Water Temple. It was super, super frustrating. But if you play it from start to finish and like don't take any breaks and don't ever leave the Water Temple, it might happen when you turn the game off too, now that I'm thinking it, because you usually start at the beginning. So yeah, if you do it without taking any breaks, it's much easier. But I think what they do in the modified version is they really just add some like markers on the ground that like make it a little bit easier to know where you're going. So I don't know if it's really that much easier, but yeah, it's a hard one.
So really, it's only hard if you're a quitter and you leave partway
That's
through.
right. Yep. If you just power through it, it's not that difficult. Says the guy who's beat it at least 20 times. So I don't know. Maybe my opinion's wrong.
Tyler actually does it with his hands behind his back blindfolded. I've done it to him before. It's pretty impressive.
That's right. Yeah.
So now, that's Ocarina of Time. It's an amazing game. We all know it's amazing. I hope
Big
I did
fan.
it justice. Is there anything else you can think of, Tyler, that I missed, or was that good?
Oh, man. I mean, there's just so much
What are your
about that
favorite
game.
moments?
It's just great.
Like favorite moments, you know?
Oh, favorite moments in Ocarina of Time. I love when you first get Epona, because you have to beat this guy in a race you beat him on a crappy horse, and then you have to beat him like 2 or 3 times. And the last time it's like literally impossible for you to beat him if you keep using the bad horse. So you have to know Epona's song that you learned as a kid, and then you get Epona to come to you at the stable, and then if you race him as Epona, you can beat him, and then he gets super mad at you, and he locks the doors, and he says, you can never leave, and so you have to like leave by jumping out of jumping over the fence of the ranch. It's very cool.
I've gotten this far. I remember that moment.
It's got a very cool like heist vibe where you're just like jump out, and then apparently after you do that, he doesn't try to track you down. So there's that.
He's upset that you beat him on horseback.
Yeah, that's right. There's that. There's the Spirit Temple, which is just awesome. All of the temples are pretty cool. Just the first time you pull the sword out of the pedestal, the Master Sword out of the pedestal, and you go forward in time 7 years, that blew my mind. As like an 8-year-old, I was like, what the heck? It was crazy. And then once I learned you could put the sword back to go back in time, oh man, just blew my mind.
I even got chills when I pulled the sword out of the stone in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I was like, what a good moment.
There's so many good moments in that game. I could just sit here and talk about it all day. So we should probably move on.
All right, next game, Majora's Mask. Truth be told, up front, I rented this game from Blockbuster. That's how long ago it was. Got frustrated with the 3-day mechanic I'm about to explain to you. Stop playing. Am I ashamed
Same.
of myself as a child? Yes, I'm extremely ashamed of myself.
I did the
Okay.
exact same thing. Probably even rented it from Blockbuster as well.
All right.
I
No
did
shame in
eventually
that.
come back to it years later. I guess in like 2013, I played it finally. And I finally played it through to the end and enjoyed it immensely. But I hadn't played it up till then.
It's so interesting because they took that you went from Ocarina of Time, which is this like fantasy, you're roaming the world epic, to just this adorable game about masks. And I loved it. I think it's so cute now. Now I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. Just an amazing idea.
It is probably the darkest Zelda game. Like when you really dig into the storyline and what's going on, it's super dark. It's all about dealing with death and the stages of grief, and it's just really, really dark.
Yeah, so the gameplay of Majora's Mask, essentially, I kind of touched on it for a bit, but it expands on that of Ocarina of Time, but there are some new elements, definitely. There's, for example, character transformations through the masks that you collect. There's 24 masks that you can get. And the masks, I'm kind of jumping around. Well, before I get to the masks, let me talk about this. There's also a 3-day time cycle, because the plot of Majora's Mask is you are in a place called Termina. It's an alternate reality to Hyrule. And the moon is going to crash into the world in 3 days and end the world. And as Link, you must stop it. And you stop it through the help of these masks that you find. There are 24 masks in the game total. Each mask gives you special powers. So, for example, some of the masks let you transform into different creatures. So the Deku mask transforms you to Deku Scrub, the Goron mask, a Goron, Zora mask, a Zora, and each of those give you abilities. So the Deku Link one he can do like a spin attack, he can shoot bubbles, skip on water, fly by launching from Deku flowers. Goron Link can roll at really high speeds, like the Gorons do, and Zora's can like swim underwater and throw boomerangs. Also, Gorons can walk in lava. That's really cool too.
Yeah,
I'm a
super
big fan
important.
of that. So. Also, a lot of the areas in the game are only accessed by wearing these different masks. Other masks, though, also include the Great Fairy Mask that you can use to find fairies in the temples that you go through. There's 4 temples in the game. The Bunny Hood Mask makes you move faster. That's always handy. And then the Stone Mask makes you invisible to most of the NPCs and enemies in the game. Also important. Now, this is what stuck me as a child running the game from Blockbuster. What you have to do to beat the 54 minutes of real life time that counts for 3 days is you have to play the Song of Time on the Ocarina of Time. That resets the world and you go back. When you go back, you have all your masks, your maps, your musics, and your weapons, but like puzzles you've cleared, keys you've gathered, items, money. If you didn't put any rupees in the bank, they will just disappear from your inventory. All that stuff's gone. I didn't know that. So what happened to me was after 3 days, I'd get a game over screen and have to restart, and I'd get super frustrated.
Yeah, and you have to beat each temple within that time period, although there are some variations of the Song of Time that will change things. Like I think if you play it in reverse, it like slows time down. You can also, I think, skip days by playing it a certain way too.
There's the inverted Song of Time, which goes back to the morning before, or the Song of Double Time, which goes forward.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
so
also-
you
go
can
ahead,
give yourself a little bit extra time too if you do it right.
Yeah, the owl statues throughout the world you can also use to like warp to places, and they also let you temporarily save your progress, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's like a quick save kind of. So because what you do every time you play the Song of Time and you reset the full 3 days, that's like a full save in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's other things you can do with the music. You can manipulate the weather. You can teleport between owl statues. You can also unlock the 4 temples. You got to play music to do that. And the cool thing, I didn't realize this at all because I really didn't play the game that much. When you use a mask, you actually get a different instrument. So like Deku Link,
the four transformation masks. Each character has like a different instrument.
Yeah, so Deku Link's a horn. Goron Link plays a bongo drum. Zora Link plays a guitar made from a fish skeleton, which is cool. And actually, Jackson Guitars created a limited edition 7-string replica of the guitar. And that was the grand prize in a contest in Nintendo Power. It's called Jackson Zorax. Isn't that cool?
I remember that contest in Nintendo Power. Man, I should have entered more of those contests. I didn't enter any of them.
I should have subscribed to Nintendo Power. I would have had a much happier childhood. So during the 3-day cycle, any non-player characters, like that's not you, most of the characters follow a schedule. And you can actually track their schedule using this thing called a Bomber's Notebook. And the
man, it's so
notebook
cool.
will track like also the 20 characters in the game that need your help. So there's a soldier, for example, that needs you to deliver medicine. There's a couple that you got to reunite. And the notebook kind of tells you what's going on and where you're at in the timeline with those interactions and stuff. So it's pretty cool. It also shows you like the masks and stuff you've like acquired, like in-game important quest items you've acquired. Now, let's talk about development because this is kind of cool. So if you were a fan of Zelda, you waited 5 years for Ocarina of Time.
That's from when Link's Awakening got released. Yeah.
Yeah, Link's Awakening. So they didn't want that to happen again, essentially. They're like, we can't wait that long. So what they did is they reused the game engine and the graphics from Ocarina of Time, and then that only made it so you only needed a smaller team, and they finished Majora's Mask in 1 year.
Dang. I mean, it is a much smaller game. There's only 4 temples, and it's all kind of contained in those 3 days, but that's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, according to A.G. Anuma, whose name I messed up before, but now we have it written down correctly, they were faced with, quote, faced with the very difficult question of just what kind of game could follow Ocarina of Time and its worldwide sales of 7 million units. And their
Holy
solution
moly.
to this problem was this 3-day system. You know, it's like they can compact game data more in those 3 days, but they can make it so you have deep gameplay. You're solving a mystery in Majora's Mask. Really, the whole game is a puzzle, which is kind of cool.
That's great.
Shigeru Miyamoto and Yoshiaki Kazumi came up with a story that served as the basis for the script written by Mitsuhiro Takano. And the idea of the 3-day system, though, came from Miyamoto and Kazumi. Once again, Miyamoto just coming up with some really cool stuff. Majora's Mask first appeared in the media in May of 1999. When Famitsu stated that a long-planned Zelda expansion was going to come out for the 64DD. Here we go again with the disk drive that no one cares about. This project was tentatively called Ura Zelda, or Ura Zelda, which translates roughly to hidden or behind. This expansion would take Ocarina of Time and alter the level designs. So this is like Master Quest, essentially. There was kind of like a rumor mill going around here.
Yeah, well, yeah, Ura Zelda eventually sort of turned into Master Quest, right?
Yeah, but then in June, Nintendo announced that Zelda Gaiden, which roughly translates to Zelda Side Story, would appear as a playable demo at the Nintendo Space World exhibition. And then in August 27th, that was on August 27th, 1999. The media just assumed that Zelda Gaiden was the working title for Ura Zelda. They didn't know there were 2 games.
Oh, sneaky.
Yeah. So screenshots of Zelda Gaiden, though, released in August of 1999, would show you that this was definitely Majora's Mask. You know, it showed the large clock at the center of town, the timer at the bottom of the screen, and then the Goron mask. So,
yeah, and there was a screenshot of Kid Link riding a horse, and it was like, what?
You're like, what's happening? Story and gameplay details were told about later, like that month in August 99, and the story concept was as well, as well as like the idea of like the transformation masks and everything. So that same month, Miyamoto confirmed that Ura Zelda and Zelda Gaiden were separate projects. So that's cool.
Oh, 2 Zeldas. What?
Yeah, it was unclear if Zelda Gaiden was an offshoot of Ura Zelda or if they were 2 separable, like 2 separate things entirely. Ura Zelda became the Master Quest version outside the companion, and then there it goes, just like you said before, that you could get that on the GameCube version if you pre-ordered the Wind Waker. So there it goes. The fact you dropped early, Tyler. You're just that good.
Boom. Straight off the dome.
Straight off the dome. So in November, though, they announced that Holiday 2000 would be the release date for Zelda Gaiden. So by March 2000, what ultimately became the final titles were announced. Zelda oh gosh, I can't. Am I going to butcher Japanese? I always feel weird doing this. I'm going to try it. You ready? Okay.
Good luck.
Zelda no Densetsu Majora no Kamen in Japan, or The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask elsewhere. I don't know why I leave
I think
those
that's
in
pretty
there.
good.
Thank you. I'm just trying to learn. You know, maybe I should do like some Rosetta Stone of Japanese for this podcast or something, you know, just to learn a little bit. You know, because I certainly can't do math. We learned that earlier. Now, to make the game so fast, they used a lot of pieces of the older Ocarina of Time engine, but they updated it a little bit. So Majora's Mask runs on an updated version of the engine, and it requires the use of the Nintendo 64 4-megabyte expansion pack. Here it comes. You remember that little expansion pack? Yeah. So there are only 2 games on the N64 that require the expansion pack, and those are Majora's Mask and Donkey Kong 64.
Hey. So I think Majora's Mask actually needed the expansion pack as opposed to Donkey Kong, who just put it in there because it fixed a bug that they couldn't fix.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought, it says IGN in the thing I read, theorized, and I'm sure other people too, that the reason that Majora's Mask required the expansion pack is that's just something that was used because of the 64 DD version. You know, they needed that 4 megabytes of RAM. So they gotta need it. But that allowed you to have like extra draw distances, accurate dynamic lighting, texture mapping and animation, frame buffer effects like motion blur, and then also more characters displayed on the screen at one time. This made it so you can have like a city with NPCs.
It's pretty cool.
Very, very cool. Also, the other thing that this expanded on draw distance does is it allows player to see much further, and it made it so it eliminated the need for like the cardboard panorama seen in Ocarina of Time. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the cityscape that's like clearly, which I kind of think is fun. Like I like those. I like those in old movies, and I like those in video games.
When you can see the like matte painting basically behind, especially if you're watching like a higher res version of something like Star Trek, where you can see like the thing they put back there that's like, we didn't build a set, we just made a big painting, which is kind of what they did in certain parts of Ocarina of Time. As you like walk into a city, it'll like, it's just fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I think it's kind of neat, and it makes me feel like, oh, look at this like old timey thing that I think, because like the paintings were so good, you know, and when they were good, they were really, really good. So, okay, the music was composed primarily by our friend Koji Kondo. But 3 tracks were written by Toru Minigishi. There it goes. Me messing the names up again. Okay. The soundtrack largely consists of reworked music from Ocarina of Time, but it had some other traditional Zelda music, like the overworld theme. And then Kondo actually describes the music of having, quote, an exotic Chinese opera sound.
Oh.
Interesting. Yeah. But as the 3-day cycle progresses, the theme song of Clock Town changes between 3 variations, 1 for each day. So that's something to look out for if you play the game. I think it gets kind of more like intense, you know, Doomsday. Ooh, scary. So Majora's Mask was released on April 27, 2000 in Japan and October 26, 2000 in North America. Very big gap there. Not 2 days like Ocarina of Time. Yeah. They sold approximately 314,000 copies of The Legend of Zelda during the first week on sale in Japan, but ultimately they would sell 3.36 million copies worldwide. Not as good as Ocarina of Time, but still pretty darn good.
That's still pretty good. Also, the cartridge, at least earlier versions of the cartridge, had a sweet like hologram thing on it where if you like tilt the cartridge, there's like a 3D effect going on there. It's pretty neat.
I think the Blockbuster one I rented had that. I remember that. Majora's Mask actually has a 95 out of 100 on Metacritic, so it's a great game.
Well deserved. It is a fantastic game.
So if you want to play this game now, get yourself an N64. But if you don't want to do that, you can also play the re-released Majora's Mask on the GameCube as part of the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this game, this disc actually had a demo for the first 20 minutes of Zelda the Wind Waker, I believe.
Yeah, I had that.
Cool.
That's the first thing I got for GameCube, because I bought my GameCube when that was like advertised as the pack-in thing, because I was like, if I get that, I won't have to buy a game first. My brother and I split it, so we didn't have to buy a GameCube game. Did
you get it as part of the subscription to the Nintendo Power magazine?
No, I got it as packed in with my GameCube.
Because that was an offer they had in early 2004.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
So, it is also available on the Wii Virtual Store. I say is and was because I don't know. Are these still active? The Wii Virtual Store and the Wii U Virtual Store, are they still supported?
The Wii one, I'm sure, is shut down. The Wii U one, I think, still operates.
Interesting. But yeah, they have versions of Majora's Mask on those too.
It was also re-released on 3DS as well. That's probably the best way to play it.
That's the one I missed. I knew I was missing one. 3DS. They really put out a lot of remakes on 3DS.
Yep. I just need these remakes on Switch. I need these 2 games, and I need the 2 remakes they made for the Wii U to be on Switch. Just do it, Nintendo, please.
If they put Wind Waker on Switch, I would lose my mind because I always wanted to play that game.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Do you have any thoughts on these 2 games before I go into the next segment that we do at the end of every podcast?
The the first Zelda Ocarina of Time.
And not to put you on the spot or anything. I just realized I was putting you
Oh.
on the spot. Like, whoa.
Oh, yeah. So the first Ocarina of Time, it's pretty safe to say that that's the game that made me a gamer. I played a lot of video games before that, but Ocarina of Time is what really, like, I played so much of that game, and it just, like, it blew my mind the whole time playing it. It's like, that's the game I spent the most time playing on the Nintendo 64, that and Banjo-Kazooie. I did everything in that game. I know every nook and cranny of that game. I need to get one of those randomizer ROM things and play through a randomized version of it. I think I know enough of that game that I could play through a randomized version of it. I think it would be so much fun.
I know. I want to hear about your adventures doing that too if you do it.
Majora's Mask, I had the same experience you did when it first came out. I rented it from Blockbuster. Couldn't really grasp the 3-day cycle. Took it back to Blockbuster. Never played it again. I did really enjoy it when I played it like 10 years later. But I don't know it as well as I knew Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I feel like as a person that only really holds on to and collects old Nintendo 64 stuff, because I have my Nintendo 64, I really should get these two games.
Yeah, you definitely should. You should look for the gold cartridges too, because they have, at least for Ocarina of Time, you get the red blood, you get the original Fire Temple music, all that stuff. And there are bugs in that game that make speedrunning way easier.
Ooh, so I could speedrun it like a champion.
Yeah.
Like a true champion.
There was a record broken on speedrunning recently that brings it down to like 13 minutes. They do some real weird stuff though. It's not like, oh, I played through the whole game in 13 minutes. It's like, I walked here, swung my sword at this wall. Like they do it in just like these strategic things, like these seemingly random moves, but they do them so strategically that eventually when you do all of them, it just takes you to the end credits. And they're like, I did it. I beat the game. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that counts. I saw someone do a speed run.
Officially, apparently it counts, but by the speedrunning community it counts. But I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I saw someone do a speed run of this one indie game for like a charity drive thing, and I was like, you're just like glitching everything.
Yeah, you got to go for, you got to watch those like 100% or glitchless runs too. You can do any percent glitchless runs where they actually have to play through the game. Those are fun too.
Oh, I'm into that. Yeah, that's cool. Well, Tyler, with that, I mean, we're going to do some more Zelda. We got so much to cover. I might take a small break from Zelda, though.
Okay.
I might break it up. I haven't decided yet. So in 2 weeks, there may be a Zelda episode, or there may be something else. I've been like flirting with the idea of other stuff, and I want to maybe might do a random episode. But Tyler, what you been playing?
Well, I've been keep moving on my Doom, playing the original Doom on Switch, so I'm halfway through that. I played the first 2 episodes, so there's 2 more episodes for me to play. Played a little bit more of Fire Emblem, not very much, but the big thing was what you and me played. We played through all of the original Gears of War, like basically yesterday and the day before.
Together as friends,
we co-opted the whole thing like buddies.
On casual, like
yeah, super easy difficulty.
Yeah,
very fun.
Because we were just trying to have a good time and play through these games because I've never played through them before, and I was and Tyler's helped me out, and that's
I haven't
what
played
friends
through
do.
them either.
Friends do it. That's what friends do. Well, you said you tried to play through it on Insane, right?
Oh, I did. So in college, I tried to play the original on Insane with one of my dorm mates. We never finished it, but we got pretty far into it. But it was basically a new experience for me when we played together. And I haven't played anything past the first one, so.
This is great. I'm excited. I have it downloaded on my Xbox number 2, Gears of War 2, for you and I to go through one day.
It's going to be jarring to go back to it because we played the remastered version of the original, so it had like Xbox One graphics, and now we're going to go back to like Xbox 360 graphics, and it's going to be tough. But
things are going to look real polygony. I hope we're all ready for it.
What have you been playing, Mike?
I have been making my eyes bleed playing Zelda Breath of the Wild because I love it so much.
I'm so proud of you.
We're taking breaks. Thank you, Tyler. That means the world to me. I'm taking a break from Destiny kind of because there's nothing for me to do until Tuesday. Mm-hmm. That's when the new thing. And I think you and I are kind of the mindset now. We're just trying to get that title. So I want to play this backlog of games. I also bought Doom though on Switch per your recommendation and played the first level of it just really quickly before going to bed, and it felt so good.
Yeah, it's great. It runs so smooth.
Buttery smooth, like goat butter from Breath of the Wild. That's how smooth it runs. So gross. I've been playing that. It is gross. And then I also played a lot of 7 Days to Die with my brother. Still doing that, as my weekly phone call game. So that's been good. But yeah, I'm excited. I kind of like I can definitely go beat Ganon. Like, I have all the stuff I need to beat Ganon. I'm just going to get shrines right now because it just feels nice, and I don't want the game to end because I'm enjoying it, and that's how I feel.
I got to a point like that too where I was just like, I could probably go beat Ganon, but I want to do all the shrines and all the divine beasts and like do as much stuff until ready. And then I went and was super overpowered. It was still pretty tough.
I actually went to Ganon's castle. Well, Hyrule Castle. It's Ganon's right now, but I'm going to take it back. But and then after that, I bought the DLC for it, which put a bunch of other stuff on my map. All these fun magic items to find from the older games. Like you can find Majora's Mask in Breath of the Wild, which is crazy.
Man, now I got to buy the DLC and just play it again, huh?
I know. I'm torturing you, but it's so great, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm so happy with it. I told my friend today because we were playing Apex for like a small bit before this, and I'm like, I am obsessed with Switch right now. I am so sorry. I'm not playing games with any of my friends. I'm just playing my Switch by myself in my room. I took your advice and I turned on Star Trek The Next Generation and I played Switch in bed while watching Star Trek The Next Generation. And it might be my happy place. That's great. What like the perfect world is for me. It's amazing. But we got some emails to read. Do you want to do some emails?
Yeah, let's do some emails.
While we pull out some emails, we did get one review. So let me read this review for the team right now as my Face ID on my phone stops working because I have to use it for a good reason. That's why it stops working. It knows I want to use it and I'm on the clock. That's how it So this review came in last Monday and it's called from AnnaRock72, Worth It, 5 stars. I found this podcast while looking to see if anyone was doing gaming history podcasts. Hey, we're doing it right
We
here.
are.
I've listened to every episode. Wow, that's a lot. And I'm actually re-listening to them because I miss some stuff as I'm usually working while listening. That's also a lot. I don't even know if I could hear my voice multiple times. I don't know how Tyler does it. It has a great feel, like talking to a good friend about video games. Oh, that's so nice. The humor is great, and I highly recommend listening. Something that may not have noticed is in the beginning they add a lot of background sound effects in the beginning and almost completely stop now, which I love because it shows that it's two great guys who wanted to make a podcast and just see how it works as they go. That's true. Also, sound drops, a lot of work. I was putting those in after the fact. Kind of took a while.
That's tough. We could try to investigate a way of doing that live. That might be kind of fun. But
like a soundboard? There's definitely ways we can do that.
Can we just load it up with some sounds from whatever topic we're talking about, maybe?
I love how this person specifically said they like that we don't do drops, and now we're like, we should do more drops again. Because of this podcast, I have began working on some old game ideas I've had for a while, and also picked up a 3DS, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask for the 3DS to play.
All right.
Wow, that's awesome. Great podcast gamers will love. Thank you, AnnaRock72. You're the best. Also, it's cool that we did this podcast today about playing the 3DS games, and you already did it last week. You're ahead of the curve. You're doing it. You're crushing it. So we got some emails to read. You want to read the first one?
Yeah. I'm going to read the one from Matt in Japan here.
Perfect.
So Matt in Japan says, "Hey guys, regarding Solid Snake's inclusion in Super Smash Bros., Hideo Kojima actually begged his friend and Smash creator Masahiro Sakurai for Snake to appear in Super Smash Bros. Melee, so that's all the way back in 2001, which predates the Twin Snakes by 3 years. However, the game was too far along into development to include him in that entry, and so he was included in the roster for Super Smash Bros. Brawl." Wow. I would have thought that it was like after Twin Snakes. They were like, oh, Snake is a Nintendo character now. But it was before, so that's really cool. The reason why Kojima wanted Snake in the series in the first place is because his son was a big fan of Smash and wanted to play as one of his dad's characters. Aww. Additionally, Kojima knew that there weren't that many Metal Gear games on Nintendo platforms, and so he thought putting Snake in would expose more players to him. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's from Matt in Japan. Oh, there's a PS here. PS. I totally agree with Tyler's hot take about Twin Snakes being a superior version of MGS1 and would like to piggyback off that with an even hotter take. Are you ready for this, Mike?
Oh, man. I put on some sunscreen for this hot take.
Put on your oven mitts for this hot take.
Okay.
The original Metal Gear Solid 1 is an ugly, unplayable mess, and Twin Snakes is the only way to enjoy that game. That is a very spicy take, and there are people who would disagree with you. I disagree with unplayable mess. I think it's still playable. It's definitely ugly, and Twin Snakes is definitely better. But I have played through the PlayStation version multiple times and still love it.
That was so spicy. That was such a spicy take. I love it, Matt. Thank you for the take, for the spice.
Thanks, Matt.
Also, the heartwarming email beforehand. This is from Rob. Rob sent an email to us. He said, I just discovered your podcast, and I'm part of one as well. The Beta Testers. Just plugging other podcasts on our podcast. I don't even mind. That's how much we like friendship on this podcast. But I was wondering if you two played Destiny 2 on a different console other than Xbox One. Well, to answer your question, Rob, I played on Xbox One for a while, and now Tyler and I are both on PC. So that's where we play it. And he says, I'm guessing that will be the only one, though. Lol. I heard you haven't rated yet, and if you're on PS4, I was going to try to set up a raid session with you guys. So Tyler and I have definitely rated. Correct, Tyler? I'm not making that up in my head. Okay,
not making that up.
We definitely, it's not a lucid dream I had. We did it in real life. But Tyler wants to play the original Destiny 1 raids. All right? We have the game on Xbox, and we are looking for 4 brave adventurers to join us. I'm doing a podcast call out for this.
Wow.
Because I wonder if we can find some people that would be wanting to play this with us for fun. We want to play Destiny 1 Vault of Glass raid on Xbox with you guys.
I'm so on board for this. I'll have to do some leveling and stuff to get there because I'm pretty sure I'm pretty low level on Xbox.
I mean, I won't because I'm kind of like super powerful, but no big deal. I'm just kidding.
You'll have to power level me.
I'll power level you. That's fine. You can't say that. But yeah, we'd love it if people would come and play the game with us. So Rob, if you got a copy on Xbox One, I know you said you have PS4, like you don't have Xbox One, but we'll work that out. We'll figure it out. Maybe I can find a PS4 to borrow and we could both just start fresh or something. I don't know. But we want to play Destiny 1 raids. That's what we want to do. Mm-hmm. And I know how to do them, so I could like mildly raid Sherpa it, but I just thought that would be fun to throw out there. But thank you for your email, Rob. And check out the Beta Testers, the podcast. Yeah, I said it. I don't think you're supposed to. Are you supposed to plug other podcasts on podcasts? That's no rules.
You can do whatever you want. This is our platform. We say whatever we want.
You know what? You should listen to the Beta Testers, and also you should not play the original Metal Gear Solid 1 because it's an ugly, unplayable mess. You want to do the next email from Ryan? You want to do the one from Ryan? Top?
Yeah, I'll do the one from Ryan here. Sup, my dudes? Ryan again. Got to keep the streak up so we can keep the episodes as long as possible since this is my go-to podcast for gaming. Thanks, Ryan. I've got nothing to add from last week since my Metal Gear experience is mostly just the 2 NES ones and my buddy freaking out during the swapped controller part on MGS when it was new. That part is sweet in the original Metal Gear Solid. The Psycho Mantis fight, he reads your mind basically, and he can anticipate all of your moves. So you can't beat him. The way you get around the mind reading is you plug your controller into the second controller port on your PlayStation, and then he can't read your mind anymore, and you beat him that way.
Whoa, that's really cool. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, and he also does a bit where he will read your memory card, both on the GameCube and on the PlayStation. He'll read your memory card for other games made by Konami, and then he'll be like, oh, you really like to play Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And it's like, whoa, this guy can read my mind. It's super crazy.
That's weird.
So yeah, that's your bit of trivia about Psycho Mantis. Back to the email. Do either of you guys listen to any other gaming podcasts? Fans of awesome games done quick? YouTube people? I just started watching the Summoning Salt guy who does mini documentaries on speedrunning stuff. Keep up #1 podcast and keep practicing for Jaybird 2020.
Jaybird 2020. Yep. I like that.
I'm practicing.
We both listen to the Destiny Fireteam Chat podcast.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time because it's what we follow. I don't listen to a lot. I listen to the Xbox one, a podcast Unlocked one, because that's how I kind of keep up with gaming news, and I have an Xbox, so I'm like automatically attached to it. Mm-hmm. But I should listen to more. That speedrunning one sounds really cool.
Yeah, that does sound cool.
The YouTube one, the Summoning Salt guy, I would totally watch that. I should listen to more. I really should.
Let's see. So for gaming podcasts, I just listen to Fireteam Chat. I do listen to a couple of tech podcasts. I really like This Week in Tech and Mac Break Weekly because I'm a huge Mac nerd. And then that's about it that I listen to for like tech and gaming podcasts. I need to check my YouTube subscriptions because I think there are a few gaming YouTubers that I really like Modern Vintage Gamer on YouTube. He posts something about every week or so with like old game stuff and like how to, using them in the current year, which is pretty cool. I like other tech people I like the 8-Bit Guy or Mac84, Lazy Game Reviews. He does a lot of tech stuff and gaming stuff, so he's a pretty good like combination. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's about it. As I scroll through my subscriptions here, there's probably some other people that I watch every time they pop up in my feed that I'm not subscribed to. But yeah, What about you?
Yeah,
Mike?
I kind of go on up and down with it. I watch or listen to those two I mentioned before, but video game stuff, I'm really just listening to like random tutorials a lot, especially with Breath of the Wild. That's like because I like get stuck on a shrine and I'm just like, where? Because I mean, this is my take. I don't want to find a shrine. Like if I'm in the area for it, I just look on a map on my phone. I'll just go to it because. That whole like natural exploration thing I did for them, and then after I beat the fourth divine beast, I was kind of like, you know what? Let's just rep these out. Here we go, and it feels pretty good. So I watch a lot of tutorial stuff. I should listen to more commentary stuff though, and watch more commentary stuff on YouTube. And I think I'll check out this awesome Games Done Quick and this summoning salt person that you recommended, Ryan.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
I usually keep Awesome Games Done Quick when they do like a live charity event. I'll usually watch that like on another monitor while I'm working or something like that. I watch a lot of summer games done quick too.
Wait a second. Awesome Games Done Quick is 100% the people I watched on Twitch that did that charity drive with the speed running that I mentioned. It was definitely them. Because they went by GDQ.
Yeah.
100%. I've definitely watched them before, Ryan, to answer your question. I just didn't realize it. Okay. One more email and then we're done. Roy, our buddy Roy, okay, he actually has a tip. This is kind of like a pro tip. I didn't realize this. And this was 10 days ago, so it might have changed. But Roy says, I shop Goodwill all the time, especially online, and thought you guys would appreciate this. They actually have a lot of sealed rare games right now. So they had an original in-package special edition N64 Toys R Us controller that went for like $300.
Whoa.
So that's a good tip from Roy. If you're collecting games, check out shopgoodwill.com. Hopefully I didn't just give Roy's secret away, and he'll be really mad at me. I hope not. I mean, hey, if you email us something, we're going to say it on the podcast, just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
Okay?
He also linked to a copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Sega Saturn, which is like an RPG version of the Panzer Dragoon series, and it is incredibly rare, and it's apparently sold on the website for $1,651. So, dang, dude.
Wowzers. That deserves a wowzers.
Yeah, it's like sealed, I think. Yeah, that's why it's so expensive.
There's a tip from Roy, though. Thank you, Roy. Thank you to everyone that emails us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. We love to read your emails to everybody, and we try to keep up with them, but sometimes we wait, and we'll do them later. I got to respond to all these people we just mentioned. I haven't actually said hi yet, and thank you. I need to do that. But thank you so much for listening today. That's it. That's today's episode. What are we talking about next week, Tyler? We're doing more Metal Gear, right?
Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty.
I really thought you were going to say Electric Boogaloo. I was really waiting for it.
Metal Gear Solid 2, Electric Boogaloo.
That's what I hoped it should. That's what it should be. But you can email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at SneakerElf, ELPH. You can follow me at Mikoletta. Anything else, Tyler?
I think that's it.
All right. Bye, everybody. Say bye to the listener, Tyler.
Bye.